This is a session all about health and safety for the Mayamiko Introduction to Natural Dyeing course. So when we're doing natural dyeing, although we're working with plants and food waste and different solutions, we also still need to be really careful about how we work and interact within the dye room and the workshop environment, and how we look after ourselves and ensure that we are safe and all of our team members are safe and happy as well. So when we're talking about you, there's a few things which you can be responsible for when you are natural dyeing. And so the first one is wearing gloves. You need to wear gloves to protect your hands from any irritation that could occur when handling plants, powders and solutions. During natural dyeing, we also use different substances like soda ash or washing powder and alum, and depending on each person, you might have sensitive skin or you might react to certain substances. So really recommend wearing gloves. The second is also to wear a face mask when handling powders. Thirdly, wear an apron to protect your clothing. And then keep any loose items of clothing, for example scarves, securely fastened when working close to open flames. When you're handling boiling pots of water or anything heat related, make sure that you wear heat-proof gloves. When you're using powders, make sure that you always add the powder to the water, not the water to the powder. And then in the event that you or your team member is feeling unwell, make sure that this is known to your supervisor or team and then seek relevant assistance. Ensure that you're not leaving any open flames or any hazards in the workshop, but really remove yourself from the workshop, from the dye room, as soon as possible. And then when we're thinking about the space and the workshop that we are inhabiting, make sure that it's well lit and ventilated. So open the windows or use an extractor fan, and in the case of a blackout, ensure that adequate lighting is resumed before working. Make sure that powders, plants and chemicals are stored in dedicated labelled containers and are kept safely out of the reach from children. And if possible, make sure that children and pets are out of the dye room. Ensure that the equipment is stored appropriately, not blocking any walkways or doors. You know, sometimes when we've got big buckets or lots of pots, it's easy just to kind of put them down when we're in a rush or when we're multitasking, but it's really good to ensure that each piece of equipment has its own dedicated space and home, just to make sure everyone's safe. Do not leave boiling pots or open flames unattended. Keep flammable objects like paper and fabric away from open flames. In certain instances, we might put the fabric directly into the dye pot on the stove to either intensify the colour, speed up the process, or test a sample. But make sure that 100% of the fabric is inside the pot. That way it's safe. Make sure that there's no loose threads hanging outside that could catch fire. And then always test a sample before dyeing full sections or meters of fabric, especially when you're using new and unknown substances or plants. And then thinking about our whole team, this is really around communication. So ensure that every team member who is taking part in the dyeing process or is active in the dye room is given an introduction. Make sure they know the best practices, including how to handle and store the dyes, the equipment, and are familiar with the health and safety guidelines. And then lastly, communicate with your team any problems or changes in circumstance so that everyone understands the task at hand. So those are the key points for health and safety. If you follow those and use your common sense, then you'll be just fine with the natural dyeing process.